The Blue Jays bullpen race is tighter than you might think, and there are some names in this mix that deserve way more attention than they're getting right now. Let me break this down for you. So here's where we're at. According to Fangraph's roster resource tool, Toronto is basically set in their bullpen. Jeff Hoffman closing games, Tyler Rogers and Louis Varland in setup roles, and then Braden Fisher, Mason Fluharty, Tommy Nance, and Brendan Little handling middle relief duties. That's 7 guys. One spot left. One spot that a bunch of different pitchers are fighting for right now, and whoever wins that job might be the most important bullpen decision this franchise makes before Friday's season opener. Now, before we get into who's in the mix, you have to understand the bigger picture here. Yimi Garcia is expected to eventually fill that spot once he's healthy. Eric Lauer could also slide back into the bullpen once one of Barrios, Bieber, or Yesevich comes off the injured list. So whoever wins this last job might not have it forever. But right now, that opening exists, and there are guys fighting for their careers over it. Let's start with the Rule 5 guys because this is where it gets complicated. Angel Bastardo and Spencer Miles are both in camp on Rule 5 draft picks, and the Blue Jays have a real decision to make here. Bastardo was grabbed in the 2024 Rule 5 draft and missed all of last season. Miles was selected this past December. If neither one makes the opening day roster, both get offered back to their original teams. Bastardo goes back to Boston, Miles goes back to San Francisco, and honestly, based on what we've seen this spring, neither one has done enough to force the Jays' hand. The results have been subpar. But here's the thing, they were selected for their potential, not their current production. Bastardo would need to stay on the 26-man for 90 days before the Jays can option him down. Miles would have to be on the roster for the entire season. That's a massive commitment for a team trying to compete in 2026. The upside is that both can eat innings and provide length out of the pen, which is something Toronto has openly said they need. I just don't think the spring performances have been convincing enough to justify the roster constraints. Now let's talk about Chase Lee because he's one of the favorites here, and I think he's a really interesting case. 6 1/3 scoreless innings this spring. That's the kind of stat that gets you noticed. He has big league experience, he's shown the ability to miss bats at the minor league level, and his 2025 season in the minors showed genuine swing and miss stuff. The concern? His K rate this spring is sitting at 18.2%, which is lower than what you want to see from a reliever banking on missing bats. He also has options remaining, which actually works against him here. The Jays could stash him in Buffalo and bring him up when needed. Sometimes having options hurts you when rosters get cut down. Let me get into the non-roster invitees because this is where the real competition is. You've got a long list: Jorge Alcala, Tanner Andrews, Chad Dallas, Nate Garkow, Josh Fleming, Ryan Jennings, Joe Mantiply, Michael Plasmeyer, Yariel Rodriguez, and Jesse Hahn. Most of those guys are organizational depth, but 4 of them have a genuine shot: Rodriguez, Hahn, Mantiply, and Plasmeyer. Rodriguez, you already know. He was part of this big league club for the last 2 seasons, showed flashes of being a real weapon but got outrighted after 2025. He went to the World Baseball Classic and didn't exactly shine, and then this spring he's given up 7 earned runs in just 3 innings. That's not the track record you want heading into a roster decision. The familiarity with the organization works in his favor, but the numbers are working against him hard right now. Mantiply is a name that casual Blue Jays fans might not know, but anyone who watched baseball in 2022 knows this guy was one of the best relievers in the National League. He was an all-star with Arizona that year, had a strong 2024, struggled early in 2025, got DFA'd, signed a minor league deal with Toronto, and now he's back in camp this spring on another minor league deal. 3 innings of work this spring, a 3.0 ERA. The veteran presence is real, the stuff is still there, and a guy with that kind of big league pedigree who's hungry to prove himself again is someone I'd want in my bullpen. Hahn is 36 years old, missed 2022 and 2023 entirely with injuries, only pitched in the minors in 2024, and came back to the big leagues last season for just 5 innings. His spring numbers, a 5.40 ERA and 6.2 innings, aren't doing him any favors. I appreciate the story, but the production isn't there right now. Fleming has gotten a ton of work this spring, 7 appearances, 8 innings pitched. He's been one of the most used arms in camp, which tells you the organization is genuinely evaluating him. The ERA sits at 4.50, the FIP at 4.66. Those aren't dominant numbers, but he's a veteran who posted over 254 innings in the big leagues, most recently with Pittsburgh in 2024. He eats innings, he takes the ball, and as a left-hander, he gives the Jays some flexibility. He's more of a depth arm than a weapon, but depth arms matter. And then there's my guy, my dark horse, Michael Plasmeyer. I know, you probably don't know this name, but let me tell you why he's the most interesting pitcher in this entire competition right now. Left-handed, 5 1/3 innings this spring, a 3.38 ERA, a 1.41 FIP, no walks, 0 free passes, a 25% strikeout rate. Those are legitimate numbers. That's not fluky spring training noise. A 1.41 FIP with a 25% and no walks is a real performance, and it should turn heads. On top of that, he threw 105 innings last season in the Texas Rangers organization. He can give you length. He can get lefties out. He can pitch in multiple roles. For a team that needs flexibility in their bullpen, Plasmeyer checks a lot of boxes that people aren't talking about because nobody knows who he is yet. Here's my actual take on how this plays out. If the Blue Jays are being smart about this, and I think they are, they keep one of the Rule 5 guys if they believe in the upside, but only if the roster math makes sense. Bastardo is probably the more likely one to stick given the shorter commitment window. Beyond that, I think Plasmeyer has genuinely earned a look with what he's done this spring, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Mantiply factor into the conversation as well. The Jays go into 2026 with real expectations. Mark Shapiro and Ross Atkins have made it clear this roster is built to compete. The bullpen is supposed to be a strength, not a question mark. How they fill this final spot matters, and the fact that there are legitimate options here, real competition for a real job, is actually a good thing. This isn't a desperation move. This is a team evaluating talent and making a decision based on performance. Friday is right around the corner. The clock is ticking, and whoever wins that last bullpen job is going to have to earn it every single time they walk to that mound.